on the next owner of the Boston Celtics, what's driving the sale of the Boston Celtics, and is Pags really in the bidding process? Because Shaughnessy had a lot of good detail on that over the weekend. But the Bruins and Jeremy Swayman are not going to arbitration. Both sides declined to go to arbitration. So
Yay!
Swayman could have taken them. The team could have taken him, as Don Sweeney pointed out in the immediate aftermath of the season. Oh, by the way, I mean, don't forget, Jeremy Swayman took us to arbitration. We didn't take him. He took us, which I just think is semantics, and you're playing games.
Bully.
Right. So here's the thing. How do we read that they're not going to arbitration? I have to read that as a good thing. Arbitration would be contentious and ugly, and it's a one-year deal, and you're driving the player away. The fact they agreed to avoid arbitration and keep negotiating, I think, and maybe I'm giving the Bruins too much credit, Jeremy Jacobs, Don Sweeney, the whole outfit, but it seems to me like that's better than electing to go to arbitration, and now we're haggling over a one-year deal, and maybe Swayman's gone in a year.
To me, it shows that they're negotiating in good faith, that they both want to come to an agreement, and this is total speculation, but they feel like they're close enough that they don't have to go there again. They've been there before. As you said, it's contentious, it's confrontational, it's an ugly process. So they can figure it out on their own, and they still have the money to give him. Like, they're still sitting there with a reasonable amount of money. What do they have, like $9.5 million left?
I think it's more than that. Let me double check. I think it's more.
Okay. I thought I was reading The Athletic. I thought I read 9.5. Maybe it's 10 plus.
Well, so look, what I see the Bruins have is, no, you're right, 9.35 is what they have in cap space.
Yeah, so they still have a reasonable amount that they can throw at him. They're not allocating it to anyone else actively that we can see right now. So it seems like it's all moving in the right direction. Maybe there was a little bit of a standstill over the holiday. Otherwise, what are they haggling over? Like, at this point, is it the difference between saying, like, 7.7 and 8.1?
I don't think it's AAV. I think it's bonus structure. Like, I think a big motivation for trading Ullmark by July 1st was the bonus that he was due on July 1st. So I think it's bonus structure, or, regardless of the cap hit, like an $8 million AAV against the cap doesn't mean that's how they're paying it out. And so maybe they're pushing money down the line so that in 4 years they can trade Swayman and the contract is somebody else's problem. Or maybe they front load it. I don't know how they would want to set it up. But my guess is they're not haggling over AAV. We all know what the end point is. $7.5, $8 million, right? Maybe it's a little north of 8. We all know what the end point is. So maybe it's no movement. Maybe it's bonus structure. Maybe it's just the way, like the cash flow for Jacobs, how they pay it out. My guess is that's what they're haggling over, and they got to figure that out. And the fact they avoided arbitration is a good sign. But again, maybe I'm just giving them way too much credit.
I think that there may be a little bit more to the AAV than you're saying, because I could see them holding up his rotation, or I guess mostly rotation during the regular season over the last couple of seasons, and his limited experience as a playoff starter, to say we're going to hold back X compared to the other guys around the league because you've really just graduated to starter. And so we can't pay you as a full starter because of the experience just hasn't been there all along. You've been part of a tandem. So while we really appreciate you and we've chosen you, look, we sent Ullmark out and we've chosen you, and now you have a real just straight up backup behind you. At the same time, I could see them. I don't think the AAV, like that they're in the same league, is necessarily a given.
Interesting. So you think the Bruins could be saying, we'll pay you 6.5, but we're not going to pay you.
Which would be insulting.
Yeah, it would
to
be.
Swayman.
But then if that's what they're saying, why wouldn't Swayman just go, screw it, I'm going to arbitration, and I'll be a free agent in a year and F you?
Well, maybe it's not that stark, but maybe it's the difference between, I don't know, 6'8", 6'9", and being in the upper sevens. I mean, that's real money. That's like not nothing.
No, it is. I agree it is. I just, if Swayman felt like he was getting lowballed, and like it's not just some of this other stuff that I think is easy to get past, they'll be, you don't get a 15-team no movement clause. We just went through this with Ullmark. You get 10. Or whatever, you'll get 15 teams, but it's in 5 years. Like all that sort of stuff, I feel like they're figuring out once they've come close on AAV in years and everything else.
I just wouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt
maybe I shouldn't.
that they're even like past
But the reason I do, and normally I wouldn't, but the reason I do, like Swayman could have taken them to arbitration, and now he's not. And so what's his recourse now? Like his recourse now is like holdout, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's not gonna go to some arbitrator who's going to get either side with him or side with the team. The recourse now is a holdout, I think. And so I don't really know what his leverage point is anymore. And I think to give up his leverage point in arbitration.
His leverage point is that he's the only guy. I mean, what are you going to do? Like, he's the only guy. You sent out the other guy. To me, the Bruins have no leverage. It's basically they're just in a stare down now.
I don't disagree with you on that, but I do think if they're not giving you the number, then you say, fine, I'm taking you to arbitration. I'll be a free agent in a year.
Yeah.
Like, I will leave. So good luck. I'm gone.
Well, I would guess that he thinks that they're bluffing because he saw them send Ullmark out. And so he goes, I've been through this with you before. I've seen what it's like when you're going to take me to arbitration. And if I can squeeze, another 0.5 out of you, then it's worth it for me to sit here for 3 weeks and just,
this is why
play my Game Boy.
This is why they screwed themselves by taking him to arbitration last year, is because you could have worked out an extension with them last year, and they were very tight to the cap, and I get that. But you could have worked out an extension with them last year, and you wouldn't be in this spot. And you could have moved on from Ullmark last year, and you wouldn't be in this spot. But here they are. And
I'm sure it's also his agent sitting there saying, like, they've got over $9 million sitting there. Don't take 6.8.
Yeah, and by the way, the number I just looked up, they have more. I'm looking at Bruins cap space on Twitter. They're budgeting in like $1 million for a third line player. And so, if the Bruins spend $2 million on a third line player, or they bring in some guy who can fit into the top six who's making $2 and change, they can look at it and go, look, we don't have the money. And if I'm Swayman, I go, tough, trade somebody. Trade somebody, and I'll hold out until then.